Well, my name is Kim Williams. I am the owner of Cloudbreak Wellness, a place for emotional healing and grief recovery. I am also a nurse and a mom, a daughter of God, and a friend. I love people. I care about people. And I cook. So, whatever needs to happen in life, make it happen. I'm thankful to be here.
Thank you so much, Kim. And you could look, I'm hungry. What you got to eat?
Right? Yeah,
Okay. So, just a little bit of background. Kim and I met, I want to say almost 30 years ago.
that's it.
And you are the first guest that I've had on Planet Noun who I met in another country. So we actually
Yes,
met in another country.
yes,
So we both live here in the States, but we met elsewhere. So
yeah,
that's another story for another day. A
yes,
funny story, a nice story for another day.
yes,
So now, 30 years later, we have both lived a lot of life in those 30 years.
yes,
And part of your pathway has taken you to uh, a specialty in grief recovery, becoming a grief recovery specialist who
yes.
also has a nursing background. I knew you were studying nursing when we first met. I knew
Right.
that was the path that you were on. But what got you to the path to become, what got you on the path to become a grief recovery specialist?
Yeah, so that's a great question because I know that there's so many people who do a 5 year and 10 year plan, but I believe that the plan really is up to God, you know, because we never really know how life is going to go and where our paths will really go, where they'll end up. So I had been nursing for a long time since 2001, and I, life and life. I was in counseling, just, I think every person should do some counseling at some point. I was in counseling. I'm going through a tough time in my marriage and just wanting to understand more about myself. And with my counselor, a Christian counselor, she um, she shared that she was actually also a grief recovery specialist, and I had no idea really what that was. And so I thought, well, maybe I can do this, a little bit of this on the side to help other people. Because I found myself just being at Costco and people would tell me about the grief that they were going through, or I'd be anywhere and people would just tell me. Um, and so I thought this was something I could do to help other people. And it turned out that I realized that I needed it too. And it was so transformative. I actually went into the program very skeptical, very skeptical.
Why? Why was that?
Well, because I was in a place where I felt like I'm trying everything and it's not working. I'm gonna try this and it's not gonna work, but no one will say I didn't try. So that was my mindset. My arms were folded when I started the program, and that was reflective of my heart. Um, that I'm here, but it's not going to work. And by the end of the program, I was literally dancing. Um, it was so transformative. Um,
How was it transformative for you? How did it just do a total mind shift or a
well,
heart shift?
yeah, it did a heart and mind shift because it took me from a place of feeling like I was kind of in a quicksand of pain, to a place where I could say, I am now walking on solid ground, and there is the stuff that's been holding me back, weighing me down. I've learned how to get those things out of that. We talk about like a bag that we carry around each day, right? I've been able to take, you know, one boulder at a time out of that bag so that I could run freely, you know. And before that, I didn't feel like I could run. I didn't feel like I could even walk. I was just trying to claw my way through every day, doing my best, putting on a good face, putting up a good front, you know, looking from the outside like I had it all together, but was just in this quicksand, and just struggling. And not really certain that there was a way out. Um, and so to discover that there indeed was a way out and that I could do it, and yeah, I did it, was just, it was being able to dance again. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
And what was it? What are some of the things that that you can discuss that led to you being able to dance again or lift, even being able to lift a boulder out of that bag?
Yeah, so this program, so the grief recovery method, um, which is has been created or was created by the Grief Recovery Institute, um, has a certain has certain key points that make it different from any other grief program that currently exists in the world. It is actually the only evidence-based grief healing program, grief recovery program in the world. Um, and so there's a very clear understanding about what grief is and what it isn't, and some of the myths that we tend to understand, the myths that we've collected throughout time surrounding grief, um, which can also be understood, or is probably easier understood by most people as emotional pain, right? It's not just death or divorce, but it's really anything with an emotional impact that leaves a feeling of unresolved. All right. So being able to understand what it is, what it isn't, and what things apply and what things don't, the program helps to remove barriers to healing. And then there are action steps that are taken in a specific order to be able to lift that boulder out of the bag and just one at a time. So it's very focused work. Um, it's very powerful because we haven't really, as a society, been taught really what grief is, and we certainly haven't been taught properly how to navigate it.
What would you say grief is?
Okay,
Because, like you said,
yeah,
normally we think about it in terms of loss related to death, death-related loss.
right,
But I think I saw there was a social media post I saw. I think it was from you that says grief is a whole, there's a whole lot more than not to say losing someone to death is trivial. That is not. It's definitely
right,
profound and,
right,
it's painful. But there are other elements that can be in that neighborhood that are
right.
also painful.
Absolutely. So the Grief Recovery Institute defines grief as the normal, natural reaction to loss of any kind. It's also the conflicting feelings caused by the end of or change in a familiar pattern of behavior. Okay. So when we think about, let's say, for example, a death. On Sundays, I used to go to grandma's house, and the whole family used to go, and it would be at 2 o'clock every Sunday, and we'd all have our big dinner there. And when we were going on our way home, we would turn right over here to go to grandma's house. But now, here's a Sunday, and I'm driving home, and I see the turnoff to grandma's house, and it makes me cry because I'm not going there anymore, right? Um, so there's a change in the familiar pattern of behavior there, right?
Mhm.
Um, it can be things like things that we do not usually think of as grief. Okay. So, like moving. Okay.
Right. Not necessarily because grandma died. Maybe grandma
Right.
moved.
Yeah. Maybe we decided to move across country for whatever reason. It could be a painful reason or it could be an exciting reason. But now I don't know where anything is. Now I don't have a village that I used to have. Now I don't like everything is off. And maybe I'm a child and my parents were moving, but I've lost all my friends, you know, or I'm moving for a happy reason, but I'm moving away from my support network, right? Which is the village I mentioned. It could be something even positive, something that people generally think of as positive, like having a baby, right? Especially for the first time. Um, I'm used to like, oh, the store closes at midnight. It's 11:45. Let's go ahead and run to the store and get some chips so we can have movie night, you know?
Right.
Um, and realizing that your freedoms are hugely impacted by the presence of a baby, and you're happy that there's a baby here, but you have no sleep, you have a lot more isolation, right? And part of that is impacted by sleep, right? Don't come over. I'm so tired. I'm so tired. But you need help. Um, and the demands on you are constant. And so your role in life has shifted, right? From one who received, right, as a child, adolescent, and so forth, to one who's giving constantly, and this is new. This is new. And I don't know how to, kind of thing. You know? So there are
Raising a
so
whole
many different
human. I think I
things,
told a family member, it's like, yeah, you have a whole human. I think they were telling me, yeah, we've kind of been out of it. We really haven't been in contact with as many people as, we normally would be. And I told them, I said, you're raising a whole human being. It's like,
right?
don't worry about us. You have a
Right.
whole person.
Right. And they're not in a space to tell you, listen, these are some things that I need. This person is like, figure it out, you know?
Mhm.
And you do your best. And there can be things that some people would think of as simple or trivial. Let's say you get you chip a tooth, right? You're
Mhm.
having fun, whatever, and you chip a tooth right in the front. Now all of a sudden you're thinking about how other people are seeing you and you're questioning what they think of you. Because, and it might seem like nothing big, but you're starting to question your how the world perceives you, and your identity is starting to come into question, right? Because someone might say, oh, this person looks polished and put together. And now all of a sudden you have a chipped tooth and they're like, this person looks, and there's a label there all of a sudden.
Hmm. Yeah, there can be a lot of labels that are associated with how a person's teeth look.
Right.
Yeah.
And but the thing is that going back to even, let's say, different types of loss, like loss of trust, right? Like a loss of control over one's body, right? When someone is raped or even given the hint that they could be attacked sexually, right? Being threatened in that way, even if it doesn't come to completion, the very threat of it removes that feeling of security,
Right.
right? And being able to have control over one's own body. So those things are also grief, right? Those things are heavy burdens that we're carrying around in our bag each day, you know, and whether the grief is caused by um, something that people would consider as major, right? As like the death of a loved one or a violent death of many loved ones or the loss of everything like in a hurricane, right?
Hmm. Right.
Or whether it's something like the chipped tooth and you are a news anchor, okay? Whether it's a boulder, a rock, or a grain of sand, it all adds weight. Is a lot of sand heavy? A 1,000 pounds of sand is the same as 1,000 pounds of a boulder,
Right.
right? Whether it's something that happened recently or long ago, right? Like, say your father says, why can't you be more like so and so? That doesn't just go away, right? Those are things that we carry around. And the heavier that bag gets, the heavier it is to run, and then the heavier it is to walk, and the heavier it is to move.
Like
Right?
the
So grief
idea,
is,
I'm
yeah.
sorry. I was gonna say
No, so
the
I was just
idea
gonna
that
say,
you're not good enough from a parent, that like a person who is foundational to who you are, they're part of
right,
the reason why you're here.
right,
I would imagine that would add a boulder.
right, right. And so um, it all adds weight to what we have to carry around. And we want to be very careful to, um, and I think that the Grief Recovery Institute is very, very good at this. We want to be careful not to classify or compare grief. Okay. And I think it's very, very innocently done where we'll have, people will have a grief support for um, this group or grief support group for that group. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But the reason the Grief Recovery Institute does not um, say, hey, it needs to be, classified as groups of this or groups of that, groups of that, it's because grief is grief. My pain is my pain. Your pain is your pain, right? We've all heard from someone or many people growing up, someone else has it worse than you,
Doesn't it seem that way though when you compare things side by, because it's what we do as human beings. We always play comparison Olympics. We're always
right?
doing that.
Right, right. And so the problem with that, although I believe at best it's intended to say, um, do what you can to muster your strengths to keep going. I believe the intention is to say, take a deep breath and see what you can do. The problem with that is, I mean, there's so many problems with that, but you know, let's start with one problem is that if someone else has it worse than me, that same message could be told to everybody in the world except one person. That means the person who has it the absolute worst. That's the only person on earth who can say I have pain.
Wow.
So then what do the rest of us do with our pain? It's a disaster,
Right.
right? Another problem with that is that each of us is a unique person. Would you agree?
Yes.
Right.
Right.
So each of us, if we're each unique individuals, we also have unique relationships to people, to experiences, to places, to things. So my relationship, if we were twins and we lost our parent, we wouldn't have the same grief because you and I are different people with a different relationship to that parent, right? So we can't even say things like, I know how you feel, because I can't possibly know how you feel. I know how I felt in a similar situation,
Mhm.
or I know how I imagine I would feel, but I can't really say, I know how you feel. We can say, my heart hurts for you, right?
Right.
Right. So, being able to put aside this idea of comparing grief, um, someone who lost a an early term pregnancy versus someone who lost an infant. People try to categorize which one is worse, but why? Right? My
They're
pain
both
is
horrible in their own way.
right. My pain is my pain. Your pain is your pain. And there's such power and freedom in being able to sit in a room full of people who are all saying, hey, I'm here because I'm hurting. Your pain is not worse or better or less or more than mine. Your pain is your pain, and that's for you to work through, and I'm going to be working through mine, right? And we get to support each other. Yeah, that is a powerful thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Like, what would you recommend someone to do if they were in that situation where people are saying, well, I mean, I understand that you've had a loss, but it's not like this person's loss or someone else's. Or if you want to compare, you know, natural disasters, like we just had Melissa in Jamaica. Earlier this year, I actually know multiple people who lost homes in the Eaton fire and then the fire in the Pacific Palisades.
Yeah,
And then someone is moving because someone, their spouse got a promotion, is getting a better job, but they
right,
have to move.
right,
Or someone lost a longtime pet.
right.
So what do you do if you want to compare things? Because in I don't want to say in certain circles,
Yeah,
pets mean a lot, but they don't mean as much as humans. But that doesn't mean that the grief of losing a pet
right,
wouldn't strike you as deeply as if you lost a human in your
right,
life, if that makes sense.
right, right. So when we realize, when we remember that that grief is grief, and just accept that grief is grief, and that if I say I'm hurting, then I say I'm hurting. Trying to trying to compare how much or how little, um, does it have a point? Because whether it is, if we even could quantify grief, right? Whether it turned out to be much or little, what would that really change?
The hurt is still there.
There's a presence of pain that needs to be addressed. And that's the bottom line. There's still pain. I'll tell you a little story if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind at all.
So, my son, when he was little, he asked for a pet. He asked for a dog, actually. And and I bought him a calendar of 12 dogs because I was like, I'm not getting a dog. We're not getting a dog. So it's like, here, you get a new one every month. You're welcome. And then he asked
Creative
for a cat.
parenting. There you go.
Right. And I really didn't want to deal with a pet, like a four-legged, like you can move around independently kind of pet. Like I'm just trying to keep up with y'all, you know? So I was really not really for this idea of a pet, but I was trying to like push it off, like, and then he asked for a cat, and I was like, no, because if it gets outside, the dog next door is gonna attack it, so that would be sad. So let's not do that, right? Then he asked for some other pet, and I said, listen, if you want a pet, you need to know that pet ownership is a big responsibility. So for your father and I to know that you can really handle being a pet owner. And now this was a small child. I said, you need to take care of a roly-poly. So let him go in the backyard, and he found himself a roly-poly. Now, I said, now let's look up the kind of habitat a roly-poly needs. So we got on computer and we looked it up, and he was into it, and he got himself a plastic container, a tub with the lid, from takeout,
Mhm.
and we cut a hole in it so little man could breathe. And he grabbed up grass and, sticks and the whole thing to create this habitat for the roly-poly. Tore up little pieces of strawberry to feed his darling roly-poly, which he named Dottie. So he would say, Dottie, 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 Dottie. So one day I'm inside, he's outside, and he hear him come running inside, and I'm thinking, okay, he's gone to the bathroom. A minute later, I hear a yell from upstairs, Mommy, 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 Daddy's dead.
Mhm.
And I'm like, Daddy's in the garage working on the car. What do you mean Daddy's dead? Daddy's dead. Daddy's dead. And I said, and I'm starting to panic because I think that my husband is dead because they've
Mhm.
been in the garage working on the car. And I'm confused because this child was inside the house. What does he mean? And he said, Dottie, the roly poly. And I was like, oh, now my Jamaican self was going, okay.
It's a
And,
bug.
right. And I'm like, there's about a billion of them outside. And then I remembered, okay, don't be a Jamaican mom right now. Be a grief recovery specialist because your son's pet, who he has been caring for every day for 2 weeks, is not moving. And he does not, this is a first time for him. He doesn't know how to handle this. And so I said, put on my grief recovery hat for this roly poly. And by this point, my husband had come inside and he was standing at the doorway listening to the conversation between my son and me. And, I said to my son, after we figured out that the roly poly hadn't had water or food in several days,
Mhm.
like, you got to feed them things. You really do. They need to eat, please. That his roly poly's life was no longer with us. And I said, Joshua, I know there are a million roly polies outside, but there's only one Dottie.
Mhm.
And I know you're hurting because Dottie is not with us anymore. And of course, the Jamaican side of me shocked myself because I'm thinking it's a roly poly. But the more important issue I knew was not the roly poly or my estimation of the roly poly, my evaluation of the roly poly, but it was my son's heart. I knew that my son's heart was breaking because this pet that he has been caring for, kind of not feeding it, not giving it water, is not really caring for it, but his heart has been caring for this animal. Um, his heart is broken. And it's my job to address that, not what I think about his roly poly. You know, um, we're quick to say, especially in situations of pet loss, and especially to a child, that's okay, I'll go get you another one. Let's go look for another one. But another one doesn't replace that one because there is only that one. Like that dog, let's say the dog's name is, give me a dog's name,
Boomer.
Boomer. That was Boomer. The next dog that comes that looks just like Boomer is not Boomer.
Even if you give it the same name, it has
Even
its
if you give
own
it the same,
personality and
it's
traits and
its own dog. And so this idea, and it's also something that we do in relationships. When there's an end of a relationship, people say, there are more fish in the sea, you know, which is intended to say, hey, don't give up hope. But it doesn't really address this relationship that has just ended. You know, when people lose a pregnancy to miscarriage or whatever, right? Any cause, people say, well, you can try again or you can have another one. And these kinds of statements that are intended to bring comfort cause injury. Because you're telling me when I told you I just miscarried, I just lost this pregnancy, you're telling me that's okay, you can have another one. Even if that's biologically true, because it may not be, I may not be able to have another pregnancy, right? Carry another pregnancy to full term. But even if I'm able to, it does not address the emotional issue that is in front of us right now, right? And
it's
so,
that person that I'll never get to know.
right, it's the hopes and dreams and expectations that I had for this person, for this pregnancy, even for the timeline of how my life would look like raising children, right? And so back to your question, when you talk about comparing or saying, hey, someone has it worse than you, or this isn't as bad as that, we have to ask ourselves first if that's even real. And then, is it at all helpful? And is it possibly hurtful?
Hmm.
A lot of times, grievers will isolate because of the things that people say to them that may be very well intentioned, but are actually very, very hurtful. You know, um, people say things like, God will not give you more than you can bear. And what that does is that makes God a cruel God, right? I'm just giving you as much pain as you can bear. Not
To
only
see if
that,
you'll bend and not break.
right, right. It's such a vicious way to treat the person and to treat God, I think.
Wow, wow, vicious. That's an interesting word.
Yeah,
Because something that seems so it seems on the surface benign because you're trying to offer comfort.
right, right. And that just
However,
right, however, and that just really highlights the fact that we really um do not generally as a society do not understand grief. Um, and so we tend to pass down the things that we learned, and the people who taught it to us are just passing it down from the people they learned it from. It's not because we learned that it works, because it doesn't work. Most people don't know what to say around a grieving person because what we've been taught has been the wrong things, right? Yeah. When another problem, I'll say this, another problem that I have with this pattern of or habit of saying, God will not give you more than you can bear. Um, it's it's just a really, really terrible twisting of scripture, right? Because the scripture is really talking about God will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you can bear. That is really the scripture that people are pulling out and saying God will not give you more than you can bear, but that's not what the Bible says,
there's
right?
two different situations.
Yeah, well, I will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you can bear. That's a conversation about temptation, right? I will provide you a way out. That is a whole separate issue. But this whole general God will not give you more than you can bear. Well, if God will not give me more than I can bear, that means I don't need him because I can handle all of this. I got it. What do I need God for?
Wow, I never thought about it like that. What are you here for?
And so we pull scripture, people pull scripture out of context and it's wrong words anyway. Um and and they say it because they've heard it said.
From someone that they valued, trusted,
Yeah.
or respected.
Right. But it's how we kind of tend to throw things out of our mouths without thinking, instead of saying, what's that like? Just I've never gone through that. What is that like?
Hmm.
People are afraid to ask a griever, what is this like?
I wonder why that's the case, because I know we like to solve things.
Yeah,
And when someone dies, you can't really solve that because the only best solution would be to bring them back. And that ain't happening.
right,
So I'm wondering if it's because we want to have a nicely packaged solution, and in
right,
the absence of that, because you're not bringing the person back,
right.
then this might be the next best thing, which is not the next best thing.
Not at all, right. And being able to say, I don't know what it is that you're going through, but I care that you're going through this incredible pain,
Hmm.
and I don't want you to carry this pain alone, you know? Like, help me understand it. What do you need? What do you need right now? You know? Um, one of the things that we see a lot among grievers, and this is I'm going to specifically say people who have grievers who have lost a person to death. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, let's say I lost a family member and there's a function going on, and I start crying. Someone will tell me, just go in the bathroom or just go in your room and just um, take a few minutes. And then when you're ready, come back. Kids are told, go cry in your room. So what that tells us, right? The message that is sent in these kinds of conversations, these kinds of lines, is you are welcome as long as your emotions make me feel comfortable.
Mm.
As long as your emotions make everyone else around here feel comfortable. But you're welcome to be here while you're happy. You're welcome to be here while you're laughing. You're welcome to be here while you're pensive. You're welcome to be here while you're dedicated to productivity. But if you're hurting, go away. We don't want to see that. We don't want to hear it. So all of me is not welcome. That's a very lonely place to be. And grievers of any kind don't need isolation when they're hurting the worst, right? But they also don't need to be around people saying really hurtful things, you know? So, one of the things that is, I think, of paramount importance to grievers is being able to be 100% present as themselves. You know, um, when we look, I always say the most honest group of people on earth are toddlers. Right? I'm not going to include babies because they can't talk. Right? They're pretty honest, but they're not talking a whole lot. So let's just talk about toddlers. Um, except for when they lie because they just ate a cookie that they were told not to eat. But outside of that,
Other than
generally
that,
speaking,
they
right?
are very honest.
Generally speaking, they are among the most honest, like consistently honest group of people on earth. And here's why. When, like, imagine like a little, like a daycare setting, right? With a bunch of toddlers in a room, and they're all kind of buzzing around doing the toddler thing, right? And you give one a cookie, their favorite flavor of cookie, which would be
Chocolate chip,
chocolate chip, okay? You give this toddler this perfect Costco chocolate chip cookie, right?
perfect blend of crunch and softness.
You know exactly what I'm talking about. See, you give this child a cookie, and the child is I'm doing a dance and happy, and it doesn't matter if you think I can dance or not, but I'm letting my body dance because I'm excited. And I have the cookie, and life is good. And I take a bite, and everything is wonderful. And then Jimmy runs by and knocks it out of my hand. And the emotion goes from super excited to super sad. And there's a meltdown, and there's anger, and there's resentment,
Mm.
and they go through all of it in a span of a very little space of time, right? And then we talk about things, we talk about solutions, we talk about accidents, and we talk about forgiveness. As long as I can get another cookie, you know, we can play together. We can be friends. I can forgive them, right? But children, they demonstrate the truth, not only the truth and what type of emotion they're experiencing in the moment, but the magnitude of that emotion. They don't dull it down. If it's at a 10, they're giving you a 10, right? And if you give them a cookie that they don't particularly care for, they'll be like, oh,
I
it's kind
don't
of,
want this.
yeah.
I don't
So,
want this.
right. They're not going to say, oh, it's wonderful. Thank you. They're going to,
That's nasty.
right, right. So, you know, and so children will tell their truth, and the truth not only of the type of emotion, but the magnitude of their emotion in the moment. But as these children grow, we teach them to narrow that window down to make everyone else around us more comfortable. And this pressing in to fit into everybody else's comfort means that my feelings get repressed. And since they can't come out of my mouth and they can't come out of my body in the moment, they come out in different ways, right? So whether it comes out in anger or people pleasing or isolation or physical illness, the body will speak what the mouth will not, you know?
Right.
And so being able to say, I need to understand the truth of my emotions and realize that all of them are welcome, right? I don't have to go to my room to cry and then freshen up and come back when I look like I'm perfect and I'm not hurting. Because if I can't be hurting now, when can I hurt?
Mm, wow. And
Right?
the secret spaces of your room will nowhere where no one else can see and experience with
Right.
you. You're
Which
alone.
means, right. Which means the only time I can have community is if I hide a part of myself.
Mm,
But that's not community. It's not intimacy, right? It's not relationship because I can't relate all of me,
everything.
right? And be loved and accepted still, even in my pain, right? So that is, I think, one of the most powerful things about really understanding grief and its place, to be able to say, I'm hurting right now. And for someone else to say, well, tell me about that. What are you, what are you feeling? And what else? And what else? Because it can be, for example, if you have a loved one who was ill and suffering for a long time and then died. Um, on the one hand, you are sorrowful because they're no longer living, and you know that you're not going to be able to talk to them about things and to hold them and do all of the things that you used to do. But then on the other hand, you're glad they're no longer suffering. So it can be both. It doesn't have to be one or the other, right? Being able to say, I love, I love her, and I'm still angry about what she said to me when I was 16. We never got to talk about that. And I wish we had, because that was that's still stuck with me, you know? Um, Oftentimes we feel like when someone dies, especially, um, we can't say any of the things that we were frustrated with them about. It's
Mm,
almost like it's irreverent, right?
right.
But to
Right.
be able to say, I love her with all my heart. But there was still some unresolved stuff between us that I
Mm,
wish we could have resolved, right? To be able to say, I hate that she didn't believe me when I told her that XYZ happened.
mm,
Or I hate that she was always working.
mm,
Whatever the case is, right? To be able to say all of my feelings
mm,
are what I'm feeling.
I noticed you didn't say with that example, you didn't say you hated the person. You just hated something that they did or a behavior, I
Right,
guess. Yeah. Not
right.
the person.
Not the person, right? And that's the thing is that when we're able to understand and process our grief properly, we can separate painful situations from a person's whole identity, right?
Society as a whole doesn't do that because if a little bit of you is bad, then you're all bad.
Right,
Everything
right,
about you is bad. No good, rotten, very good. Wait, what's the Alexander? The no good, very bad. A no good, very bad person.
right. And and it's interesting because um, we tend to either like demonize a person or make them a saint. Like they were all wonderful. You can be standing there at the funeral and everyone's saying all these wonderful things. But in the recesses of your mind, the things that are standing at the door of your lips, but you can't say, are, if you had any idea, you know, or they were all bad, just horrible, they were awful, they did this, they did that, they did that, they did that, and totally discounting the good that they did bring, you know. We tend to be one way or another, and we need to do better really at being able to say, this person brought good things and not so good things, as we all do, right? These are the things that I appreciated. These are the things that I disliked strongly. These are things that I had a problem with. Or these are the things that I don't understand,
Mhm, mhm.
right?
And that doesn't mean you're throwing them in the trash.
Right. Doesn't mean that we're throwing away their worth,
Yes.
right? We're saying that people make choices, and sometimes we understand those choices and sometimes we don't. Sometimes we understand them but disagree with them. And sometimes we agree with them. So being able to say, I don't know why that person made that choice, but they made the choice. Now I get to decide what choice I'm going to make for myself moving forward, right? What kind of person do I want to be? So, a lot of times, people who have lost someone to death will say, there are things that I wish I could have said, right? Things that were unsaid, those unresolved things, right? This unresolved grief that we can no longer say to that person, but we actually can work through this stuff. And this is part of what is done in the grief recovery method. Um, so it's really powerful work because a lot of time people feel like a lot of times people feel like the things that we never got to talk about, me and this person who passed, now there's no hope of it ever being resolved. And it feels very heavy because it feels like I'll never be able to let go of this. But there is actually hope. And that's exciting. That is what I find as really exciting. People ask me, well, what kind of work do you do? And I say, I'm a grief recovery specialist. And, people all of a sudden are like, oh, sounds heavy, sounds dark. And I'm like, I love my work, you know, because I get to see people going from a place of feeling like, how will I ever not feel like this? I feel like I have a life sentence of sadness. And being able to, in 2 months, be like, I never thought I could be this happy again.
Wow.
That is exciting. That's exciting work. And one of the additional, could say, side effects of
Mhm.
this work is is being able to develop compassion um, where there was resentment or anger before, right? So when there's been a, an event that has caused a person pain, right? So for example, when I was 12, a family friend attempted to rape me, all right? And I carried a lot of anger around for decades, decades, right? Um, Being able to do my own grief work through that relationship, meaning there was an event and it changed my life. And being able to deal with that, my relationship with that individual in my mind, that person died years and years and years and years ago. But I still got to do the work to resolve what was unresolved, right? And being able to forgive and being able to offer compassion, not like, oh, come here, you cute, cuddly, wuddly, wonderful person. No, no, because this person was a predator, right? Was an 89-year-old predator,
Wow.
okay, to a 12-year-old girl, okay? So it's not that. Compassion is saying what he did was awful, but I don't know what got him to that place. What if something awful was done to him? It's not to excuse it because you're a grown man. But what has he, there's another person on earth that has been grieving too. I have pain. Someone else has been carrying pain too. It doesn't make it okay. It doesn't excuse it. It doesn't lessen the pain it caused me. But what it does say is that I now have the capacity to exchange hatred for a space to say, I don't understand, but it must have been bad. That gives me peace, right? The peace that I get to live with because of the F and the C, forgiveness and compassion. It is a freeing place. It is a real place of freedom to be able to say, I can I can keep moving forward with my life, um, not needing to know the answer to the question why.
To me, let me know if you what your thoughts are about this. There seems to be similarities between resolving that type of grief, um, when someone has done something unto you and they're no longer of this world,
Mhm,
they passed on, and someone who has done something unto you who is very much alive and still with us,
mhm,
but going to them would kind of be fruitless because whatever response you were expecting to get from them, you
mhm.
just will not get.
Right,
And there
right,
seem to be some similarities because you will get no response from the person who's passed,
right.
but you will
Or,
get no response from, depending on the person who's still living, you're not
right,
going to get what you want.
right. And
They're
so
not going to say sorry.
right. This is the dangerous thing about this word expectations,
Mhm.
right? So we oftentimes will imagine a scenario where we're going to go to this person who offended us, who hurt us, who harmed us, and we're going to tell them either that they harmed us or how awful it was that they harmed us. And in our minds, they're going to listen attentively without interruption. They're going to say, "You're right. I was so wrong. I am so sorry. What can I do to make it right?" And as a bonus, I'm hoping that God will inflict some severe pain on me so that I can feel what I made you feel. Right? This is how we fantasize about things, right? Even if it's like just in a fight, I'm gonna, and they're gonna feel the pain that I felt. And it's a lie. It's not only is it just an
Oh my
exercise
gosh.
in futility, but it's
Yes.
actually a fishing trip for more pain, right?
I've
Because
never heard it put that way. A fishing trip for more pay.
it is, right? Because we think we're gonna go fish and get a great catch. We're gonna get this thing that we want. But
Catch
it's
some
like,
more misery.
right, you're going to pick up jaws, right? Because there are very few, I'm not saying they don't exist, but there are very few circumstances in which that goes well, right? One that comes to mind, and it doesn't always work this way, but one that comes to mind is um, an adult child who goes and finds the parent who left while they were young and talks to them about that estrangement and building a relationship, or, hey, that I'm really angry that you did this. And that person is receptive. That's what comes to mind. So those, I mean, those and other situations can go well, but oftentimes when someone has injured us, right, and is not remorseful about it, when we go, when we think we're going to go tell them something, or we're going to write them a letter telling them everything, and we're going to deliver this message, we think that we're going to get this good thing back. We're going to get their sorrow, their repentance, and a whole turnaround. And oftentimes, we don't even get our side of the story out before they start attacking, right? Um, and sometimes all it does is just bring additional attacking, additional pain, pain on top of pain. Now, you're already carrying this heavy, heavy bag around with boulders and rocks and stones, pebbles and sand. And now, instead of emptying a boulder out, you've gone and collected another one. It's not good. It's not a good idea, right? And this is why in the grief recovery method, they do not promote, even if the person is living, to go talk to that person about it or write them a letter to communicate with them about it, because that is usually not only not helpful, but usually harmful, right? And that's not what the griever needs. What a griever needs is healing, right? Right. So we approach it a different way. And it is in a way that promotes safety and healing and freedom. And I'm just so, I feel honored, I feel privileged to do this kind of work. Yeah.
And it sounds like the process of healing is an individual one. It's on, say, I'm seeking healing. It's on me to heal, not on me to go and try and get someone else to say or do something in order to enable me to heal. I have to do the work, regardless of what someone else did.
Right. And that's exactly right. Not only do you have to do the work, um, taking all the action steps necessary to do your own healing work, but you have to know who is safe and who is not safe while doing your healing work. You
How do
have
you
to
know that though?
understand what's that?
How do you know that though?
Well, you
Because
know that because the way you know that is by having a person who's not emotionally invested in that event. Okay. So When someone comes to me and say they're telling me about this painful event or this painful relationship, this unresolved thing, I don't have a relationship with that pain. Even if I know the person they're talking about, I don't have a relationship to that pain, right? So I'm not in a position to defend anything. All I get to do is listen and show them that they're safe to be heard, right? That their experience, their perspective is all valid. The pain that they're saying they're carrying, I believe them. I don't have to argue with them about what happened. No, that's not what happened. Which is one of the reasons why we don't have um, close family members or close friends, like husbands and wives. We don't have like siblings in groups together. Like, so if we had, say, a group of 12
Mhm.
and we did breakout groups, if they were family members, we would separate them out into different breakout groups.
Okay.
Because um, because if I'm telling my story and my of relationship to dad, say for example, and my sibling is in the group with me, and I'm telling, I remember when so and so and so and so happened. And then my brother chimes in, that's not how it happened. It's like trying to trivialize or undo the reality of my pain, right? So the way to know there's a safe person is if there's a person who does not have any emotional investment in that relationship. Yeah, right? Um, and just being able to say, like even with my children, just because I do this work, I understand it. So I, even when I'm emotionally invested because it's my children, being able to say, is it my job right now to clarify facts, right? The historical timeline of what happened to my gummy worms, right? Or is it my job to hear my child's heart,
Mm.
right? Because whether it's your children or whether it's your friends, whether it's family members, coworkers, it doesn't matter who. With every interaction that we have where a person is telling you about something that is hurting them, whether it seems trivial or not, they are learning if you are safe to talk to. Are you going to argue with me? Are you going to tell me to look on the bright side, which discounts my pain? Are you going to tell me someone has it worse than me? Are you going to tell me stop the foolishness? Because that's one of our favorite words, right? Um, or, we say, well, it's not that bad. Imagine if, right? And just
I just
minimizing each
told you
other's,
it was that bad.
right? And the thing is, like, let me be honest. I'm going to be very transparent. There are times that my children tell me things, and I'm thinking, these kids are soft, right? They're so soft. Like, how do I toughen them up? Because I want them to not be breaking under every situation that comes along. My darling son, oh, I will fight. I will fight to the death for my children. Let it be known, okay? But my son will have a meltdown because he forgot his watch. And I want to be like, what you gonna do? Like, you have to be able to find a solution, a plan B. If you don't have your watch, what are you gonna do? Right? But at the same time, emotional intelligence says that I'm not telling him that he needs to figure out how to manage his day because he's gonna figure that out. Emotional intelligence says, I hear you feeling really frustrated right now. I'm sorry, because I don't like feeling frustrated. That's a really stinky way to feel in the morning. It's not a fun way to start your day off. I'm sorry you're going through that. What else are you feeling? And then as he hears that I'm not trying to reshape his pain or trying to minimize it or trying to say it's just not valid. What are you going to do? Asking my son to be like a Navy SEAL. No, he's a school-aged child. As I show him that he is safe to express what he's feeling at the magnitude at which he's feeling it now, and that he's safe with me, then he's going to feel like I'm safe to talk to about the other things. And he may not even need my advice, the advice that I want to give so bad, you know, so bad. Like I'm itching. Pick me, pick me. I'll tell you what to do, you know, um, because I tend to be with my children, I tend to be a solutions person. You come to me with a problem, I'm going to give you a solution because that's my job. But then we have problem with men when we tell them our problems and then they want to give us a solution. No, I just want you to listen.
That's what our kids want from us sometimes.
Right, right. And so being able to say, oh, that's a bummer. I'm sorry. That's no fun. What else? Oh, I'm free to feel what else? And let me search my heart. What else am I feeling? Being able to give myself an emotional assessment, right? What is in my emotional bag right now? Right? This is teaching my children, hmm, who's safe to talk to? What does that feel like? What does that look like? And then
Full
teaching them how to
acceptance.
look inside, right?
Mm-hmm.
To take an inventory of what's going on and know that I deserve to be welcomed, all of me, no matter what I'm feeling, you know? Yeah. I still have to fight within my natural self, you know, to do that. But just doing this work helps so much to be able to have compassion and to take a closer look at what the situation actually is calling for, right? When on the surface we think, you know, like a someone will say, I'm so sad about the loss of my dad or the loss of my mom. And immediately they think solution. You should go look for a hobby. So crowd out your mind, fill up your mind so that there's no empty space so you can't think about the loss of your parent and so you can't be sad. Why? Why don't I get to be sad? Right? If I have the right to be happy at happy occasions, why don't I have the right to be sad on sad occasions?
Oh, fully happy when it's happy, fully
Yeah,
sad when it's sad,
right,
without any reshaping of.
right. When people say take it down a notch, um, that pains me, because it is saying all of you is not really welcome. All of you is not really welcome. It's making me uncomfortable, so you need to change.
And it's not a situation where we're talking about someone is yelling in the opera. That's not
Right.
it.
Right. Yeah, we're not
That person
talking
would need
about that.
situational awareness.
Right. Exactly. Because I can be like, shh. Right.
We paid money for these tickets.
Right. Right. You go zipit.com. But being able to say, your emotions don't have a place here. Now, I'm not saying you should stand up in the middle of a church service. Stand up. while the pastor's preaching and just "Ah!" That's not what I'm talking about, right?
Mhm.
Because that's also saying no one else matters right now except for me,
Right.
right? So that's not what I'm saying, right? But what I am saying is a person, when a person gets to experience being standing in their emotional truth when they're feeling it and being accepted and their emotions not being offered a remedy, you know, is a wonderful, safe place to be, you know? And it is from that place that healing can begin. Yeah, yeah. Because
I think,
we
oh, sorry, go
realize
ahead.
what's that?
Oh no, I was gonna no, go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say that we realize that, we're not broken. You're nothing wrong with you. Your heart is broken, but you are not broken. You are not like now just a shell of who you were. No, you're the whole you. You're whole you and you're hurting,
And that's
right?
okay.
Yeah, you get to. You get to. Yeah. What were you gonna say?
Oh, I think I forgot. Yeah, I forgot. No, I forgot. It'll probably come back some other time.
It'll come back.
But it's but yeah, the idea of showing up as your full self, why that just feels. Oh, I know what I was going to say. It takes courage to be able to be your full self.
Right, because it's usually not safe.
Right.
So that's why it
Yeah.
requires courage. But what if the more we learned about grief, the more we spread the truth about grief, and the more we started addressing grief properly, creating safe spaces for grievers to grieve, creating a mindset shift rather, a mindset shift. Did I say that right?
Mindset shift.
Yeah.
Yes.
Creating creating a mindset shift in our society that that really makes um, grievers feel safe, right? And whether it's grief from loss through death or divorce, or grief from a change, any other change, or anything that has left um, emotional impact that leaves a feeling of unresolved in our lives, if we can make a safe space for that, can you imagine how it would change society?
It would be nice to
Yeah,
think and to deal and to relate to human beings with nuance instead of you're all this and none of this.
right, right. We tend to categorize people as we say things like after let's say a death, okay? Um, we see the person who is grieving a loss, and based on what we see, we'll say, wow, they're being really strong. Or we'll say they're falling apart or they're a mess right now. What does that even mean? What what
Hmm.
does that mean? We're condemning truth.
Hmm.
We're condemning true feelings. We're demonizing sad
Mhm.
or angry or whatever, and we're praising when a person either doesn't feel or doesn't in the moment have any particular show of feelings, or if they're just stuffing it, putting it away, we're like, that's good, that's bad.
Oh, it's interesting that you say that because I have described myself like in the first 5, 6, 7 months after my mom passed. I used that time, especially the first few months. I
Mhm.
described myself as being a mess.
Yeah,
Why? Because those who know me know I am generally not an open book with everyone.
right,
This podcast is a little bit of a turn
right,
because I'm sharing parts of myself that I normally would not.
right,
So, generally speaking, I'm not an open book. I describe myself as a mess because I was not behaving in the normally,
Liz
hey,
way.
generally friendly, but generally not emotional
Right,
in any way
right,
to people on the outside.
right,
And I've described myself as a mess.
right. Because you were more emotionally expressive.
More emotionally expressive, wasn't eating. The times that I mean, everything was just in a jumble.
Yeah,
My routine was jumbled. My emotional routine was jumbled. My day-to-day routine was jumbled. Everything was jumbled.
right, right.
And it was a
And
mess. And
right,
I describe myself as a mess, but maybe I shouldn't do that. Maybe I should have more grace for me.
right. So the thing is that when we when we can give ourselves permission to feel whatever we're feeling to the magnitude, right? To the extent that we're actually feeling those things, not trying to minimize it, not trying to soften the blow for someone else. But when we can actually allow our emotions to have a seat at the table, they don't have to excuse themselves and come back pretty. Our emotions are all welcome at the table. When we give ourselves that permission, we allow ourselves to have schedules being totally discombobulated and say, guess what? That's how it's going to be right now because a meteor just hit my life.
Right.
So Hurricane Melissa just happened recently in Jamaica, right?
Mhm.
The day-to-day life could not possibly continue as normal. Just
Right.
we return to our, previously scheduled programming. No, we do not. Everything comes to a standstill. The only things that could happen in the immediate post-hurricane period, search and rescue, looking for cleanup, trying to step over things, trying to find out where's the road. There are some things that happen in that phase that are not a part of a normal day-to-day routine, right? So when you think about life after a natural disaster, life has to take a different turn.
Hmm.
It has to take on a different look, different activities, and different capacity
In order to get back to
in
whatever
order to
normal
ever,
was, maybe.
in order for it to ever get back to some semblance of what it was or something that works. It might not ever be what it was, but something that's going to work moving forward, right? My expectation that it's going to be like it was is going to hurt me because it's never going to be like that again. Even the trees are different. They're
Mhm.
never going to be the same again, right? So trying to get back to what it was is not really the right way to think. But if we think, what can we do in order to get back to a way of life that will work for us? It's not the normal day-to-day routine because there's no capacity for that at this time. We see that as sensible after a hurricane, category 5 hurricane. But somehow we try to act like it's not a thing after a death or after some other devastating event or after
That's an
some
emotional category 5.
pileup, right? Or after some pileup of events where we just reach full capacity and there's nothing left to give.
Right.
Like being a caregiver, for example, to someone
Mhm.
we love deeply, but it costs. It costs. And do we have permission to say that I'm hurting as I'm giving to this person I love?
I'm exhausted and I want a
I'm
break,
exhausted. I
but I
have
can't
nothing
take a
left,
break.
right? We try to decide if a person is good or bad in that situation based on how we took care of our person, And when we hear stories of for example, a son leaving his mother in her filth um, for 2 days as he just went off to the casinos,
Mhm.
we think, what a horrible son. But we didn't have anything to say when he was saying, hey, can you help me out for 3 hours so I can just get a break?
Mhm.
Right? So we have to remember our capacity changes when the weather changes. Whether it's something sudden, like sudden or as intense as a Category 5 hurricane, or whether it's the cumulative effects of an ongoing drought.
Mhm.
At a certain point, you can't keep doing the day-to-day routine. There's no capacity for it, right? And if we give permission for it in a post-hurricane situation, we need to be able to give it to ourselves after an event that has just shattered or shaken our world. You know, I've said to people, imagine if you were in a motor vehicle accident, right? Multiple traumas, and you're rushed to the hospital, and they're starting to take care of you, and you get to the point where you can talk back, right? And you say, "Thank you so much. I'm good. I'll take it from here." And they're like,
You're still
"You're
bleeding.
not," right?
Your
If
foot is
we,
broken still.
right,
You're not going to walk out of here.
you're not. And, in that kind of situation, we don't do that. We realize I can't. I want to, but I can't right now. I need to be taken care of by the people who know how to take care of this.
Mhm.
When it comes to grief, whether it is from something more sudden and acute or whether it's something cumulative, we think we can just keep going. It's like leaving the ER with busted self, head to toe. I got it. Thank you. I'm good. That's not sustainable. So you're gonna walk out of the ER not having done anything to be better, but you're just telling yourself, I'll be fine.
Thinking hydrogen peroxide and bandages are going to take care of it.
Yeah, yeah. Like it's frightening because as advanced as our society is, or as we try to tell ourselves, that we're so advanced, we get that when there's a physical trauma that it needs to be taken care of. And you know what? The rest of life has to just be put on hold. We
Mhm.
really have not created any space for the emotional trauma. And we act like it doesn't have impact. Tell me it doesn't have impact when violence happens because of unresolved emotional pain, right? When um, illness
Mhm.
happens because of unresolved emotional pain. There are so many. there are so many things and things that are passed down from generation to generation because they've been left unresolved. Pain begets pain, right? And being able to say, this is not the truth.
Mm.
The truth is, I need help. The truth is, I'm in a post-hurricane situation. I can't just continue life as normal right now. I'll get back to a life that will work moving forward. But in order to get there, I have to rebuild from the basics, from the very basics first. Have to clean out debris, clear places, reestablish infrastructure. That has to happen. And it's no different in the emotional world, right? But the good news is it doesn't have to take a really protracted amount of time. Some people feel like it's unbelievable because oftentimes you can be in counseling for years, for decades. But and this is definitely not a knock to counseling because I think it's wonderful, right? Absolutely wonderful. But this work is specific. It has a beginning and an end. It's not an open-ended kind of thing. It's an actual step-by-step course. And people feel like, how could this be? But at the end, like I didn't believe that I could laugh again. And that is why I love my work. Yeah, right. And being able to laugh in sincerity, you know. I don't have to put this part of me aside to be able to laugh. All of it can be present. Yeah, yeah.
Full-throated, robust laugh.
Right, right. That laugh from your belly button that makes you pull your head
Yes.
back, right? That
Yeah.
can do that again. And it does not, I don't have to forget the person or forget the pain, right? To be able to laugh,
Mhm.
right? Because all of me is present, right? And the things that needed to be worked through or worked through. Yeah, it's a beautiful, um, exciting and powerful place to be, you know. And when you do that type of work, you meaning as a person who does the program, goes through the work themselves, um, it really is empowering not only for that relationship that you worked through, but being able to say, I now have the tools to be able to approach other things that are going to come in life, you know. Um, I'm more empowered um, to navigate things as they come and to give myself permission um, to be fully present, right? And not have to offer apology for anything I'm feeling, you know.
Is there anything that I have not asked you that you feel it's important to share?
No, I'd say we covered it. I mean, there's really a lot that is that a lot more that is, you know, delved into more deeply in the program, obviously. Um, but I think the biggest thing I would love, for people to know is that, you know, the pain, whatever pain it is that we're going through, whether that grief is from the death of a loved one or from any other thing that has left any emotional print, right? There is hope. Like, and it's not some far-fetched, it's gonna take me years and years to do. No, it's it's very doable. It requires your work. It requires honesty. Um, I don't need to know all the details, right? I tell my clients, you don't have to tell me things you don't want to tell me. But whatever it is you do share needs to be the truth, right? Because you can't be free without your truth, right? So being able to speak your truth and knowing that it's safe to do so um, is is a huge tool. So my job is to lead you, right? Almost like a Sherpa, right? Up a mountain, like climbing Mount Everest. I will show you the way to go, the tools that you need, the things that you need when you need them to be able to reach the summit. But I can't carry you. Even if I could, I'm not. I'm not going to carry you because then you will never be able to say that you summited this mountain. I summited it for you.
Hmm.
And that means that I have disabled you because now you don't know that you can do this.
Wow.
And you will forever be disabled. That's not nice. But to be able to say, I will show you the way and which tools to use and when, but you have to do the work. And it's not going to get easier the further up you go.
Mhm.
I think that's a misconception people have. They feel like it's, the further along, the easier I'll get. No, it's not going to get easier. It's going to get harder,
Might have a little altitude sickness.
right? It gets harder because you're outputting energy. Emotional energy is actual, it actually drains your body, just like physical exertion does. So emotional exertion is going to drain your body. And so we talk about how to make up for that. Um, but when you expect that it's going to get a little bit harder and harder each session, some people are like, they want to run. No, no, because I'm not leaving you. I'm going with you. And when you stick to it and you give it all you've got, people usually get to like the second to last session and go, when is this going to get better? This is terrible. This is rough. It's not terrible, but it's rough. It's
Mhm.
really rough
It's
emotionally
challenging.
because you're
Yeah.
pulling up stuff that we've been trying decades to push down or for however long it's been. We've been trying our whole lives to push it away, and we're now asking you to pick it up
That
and
tree
do
has deep
something with it,
roots.
right? And handle it and look at it close up. And that's painful because we're not accustomed to it. But if you believe that I'm going to be with you the whole time, because that's how it has to work, right? It is at the very end of the last session where people go, I can't believe it. I finally, like, they feel like they finally reached the summit.
Mhm.
And the view is incomparable to anything, not only that they've ever seen, but to anything that they thought it would be. It's better than what they thought it would be because it just seemed impossible before they started that they could be happy again. But to be able to get their true selves back. Notice I didn't say their old self back.
The old self may not have been the true self.
Right.
Whatever, before whatever loss happened.
Right. The old self wasn't able to wasn't able to share the full truth of themselves. The old self didn't have the tools that it has now, right? So we're not trying to get back the old self, but we are trying to get the true self, you know? So a person knows when they finally get to stand in their truth, and it is an amazing feeling, an amazing feeling. Yeah. So again, my name is Kim Williams. I deal with death, with loss, with emotional pain, and it is fantastic. I love my job.
So I'm trying something new, and it's been tried on other podcasts, and I'm going to try it here. And I'm going to ask you a question from our last guest, and her name is Nikita Moore. And the question is this: If aliens came to Earth and asked you to explain love using three objects, what would you show them and why?
Aliens came to this earth and asked me to show them love using three objects. Um, I would I would say I would show them a tree. The book that comes to mind is The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein, years ago, that I read as a child and I read to my children. Um, a tree represents something to me that keeps giving. Um, it gives fruit as long as it can give fruit. And when it's not giving fruit, it's giving shade. And when it's not giving shade, because the leaves have fallen off, it's allowing the sunlight to break through because it's the cold time of year and we don't need shade right now. We need sunlight. It's offering a place for birds to nest. So it gives, and it doesn't ask for its strength from the one it's giving to. It gets its strength from another source, right? It draws it from the ground, it draws it from the sun. Um, but it doesn't require reciprocation necessarily. It appreciates reciprocation. It appreciates care. Um, but its desire, its job, what it does is it gives, it blesses. So there's a tree. Okay. And then I would say a spring of water, or like a clean spring of water, to be clear, a clean, pure spring of water, because it's bubbling up. It gives a cheerful sound. Um, it gives hydration and cleansing to the body internally and externally. And not just for me, but for the birds too, and for, whoever can come by. But it is inherently clean, it is pure, and it's safe. So that's love also. Um, and it's giving continuously and it's bubbling up. From its overflow, it is giving. Um, and then I would have to say the cross of Jesus. And whether you believe in Jesus and or not, um, it is for believers a symbol of ultimate sacrifice because of incomparable love, um, a love that will sacrifice, no matter the cost, because it's the object of its love is valued as priceless. Yeah, yeah. So a tree, a clean spring, and the cross of Jesus.
Awesome.
Yeah.
One thing I forgot to ask you is to come up with your own question to ask the
Huh.
next guest. That's what I forgot.
Ah. Well, let's see. I wonder if I can come up with one now. If you knew that you're gonna die in 10 years,
Mhm.
so you only have 10 years to put your fingerprint on this earth. If you had no obstacles, what would you do to put your fingerprint on this world and why?
That is nice. Oh, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.